Well, folks, we're visiting today with Monika Jaensson. She's with Jaensson Law in Charleston, West Virginia. Monika, thanks for being on the show today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all the way up from Charleston here to Morgantown. It's great to have you on with us, and I look forward to discussing your story.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Positively West Virginia is powered by Breezeline high-speed fiber internet and sponsored by Highmark West Virginia, Freedom Key of Morgantown, and Storymaker. With the help of these sponsors, we are able to share the positive business stories of West Virginians, including the one featured in today's episode.
Monika, tell us a little bit about Jaensson Law. What do you do?
Well, I represent clients in sort of three buckets of legal areas. The first bucket is my niche here, and that is in intellectual property. So I help clients get patents and trademarks and copyright registrations at the USPTO and the Library of Congress. And then I also help them protect their confidential information via contracts and employee policies, et cetera. So that's the IP bucket.
Yeah.
Then I do a lot of business work. So if they have contracts with customers or vendors, or they want to, have a contract with a distributor, or vice versa, they're the other party to that. I can work through that with all of their contract needs. So I do IP licensing under that.
That's great.
And business formation. I help a lot of companies register with West Virginia Secretary of State, et cetera.
Yeah, wonderful.
And then my third bucket is in gestational surrogacy. So I assist gestational surrogates and intended parents in their journey. And I'll represent one party or the other, one side or the other, in the agreement phase, where we come up with a legal agreement to cover how their surrogacy is going to go forward. And then also at the parentage stage, where we obtain a parentage order from the court so that the birth certificate correctly identifies the biological or intended parents.
Yeah, that's great. Wow, what a variety of services you provide. I'm sure that keeps you very busy and it's very interesting too.
Yeah,
lots of really cool stuff. And I'm especially interested in the IP because obviously our audience here with Positively West Virginia is the business community, and people like to know, hey, is this something I can protect with a patent, right? So we can maybe talk a little bit about that.
Exactly.
So, Monika, how did you get started? What drew you into the profession of law?
Good question. Well, I was electrical engineering undergrad, and so I think I maybe didn't want to do that for a career. I'm not sure I made a very wise decision. I was young. But anyway, I thought that I would save the world through being a lawyer, and maybe I would have some opportunity to impact the world. It's not exactly how my career progressed, but because the engineering would not go away. Yeah. So as a result, the patent world really opened up for me.
Yeah, very cool. Now, you're not originally from West Virginia. You're from Chicago.
No, yeah.
What brought you to West Virginia in the first place?
I was getting married to a West Virginian.
Yeah.
And they don't leave so easily. So I was living in Kentucky at the time and practicing law there, and then moved to West Virginia, and we've raised our family, and it's been a great place to live. So. Yeah,
that's great. Awesome. So let's dive a little bit more into the inspiration, I guess. You mentioned you're in thinking about electrical engineering, and then you get into law. What was there something that just said, hey, that's what I want to do?
No. I mean, yes, but that's not what I'm doing. What drew me to law was I felt like I could make an impact by being a lawyer who represented criminals. On the criminal defense side. I would have been a very bad criminal defense lawyer and burned out very quickly.
That's tough work.
But yeah, I mean, that's what drew me there, was passion for the underprivileged and really wanting to make a difference. And then I found myself at law school, and my ways sort of shifted a little bit.
Yeah, so. I think that's in any kind of entrepreneurial or even a career type of mindset. You get exposed to something and you say, maybe that's not it, right? Or maybe you see something and you say, I want to try that. And then that becomes your passion and your true love, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm very grateful for the path that I've had, because it also made it easy for me to raise children. Whereas, in the patent world, it's not very dramatic in the in the criminal defense world, you're responsible for whether somebody's going to walk free or not, and based on your own mistakes potentially. And I think that would be really stressful if you were raising children at the same time.
Yeah, especially sometimes when you're in those cases, maybe it's a first degree murder or homicide or whatever. I mean, it can be really ugly, So I imagine it's tough work. I have a friend who does that kind of work, and it's just, I don't know how he does it, So I appreciate you sharing that. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about intellectual property and trademarks and patents. Yeah. So I've had opportunity to apply for a provisional patent and was granted that. What's that process look like, and who needs a patent?
That's a good question. I think. Well, those are two very distinct questions, frankly.
You can take them, separately.
Yeah. So, who needs a patent is probably the first question, and that is obviously somebody has come up with an invention, and that has to be new, novel, and non-obvious over what's already out there, whether it's in a patent application or in a scientific disclosure. If somebody's already discovered this, you can't get a patent on it, or already has a product out there that does the same thing. So, the first question is whether you truly have a patentable invention, and then the second question is, whether it's going to be of value to you to obtain a patent. A patent can be very, very expensive to obtain and maintain. It's always shocking, I think, to people who are acquiring patents, the expense that undertaking really brings forth. And so, if you have that innovation and then you intend to sell it yourself, sell the product yourself, and it can be easily reverse engineered once it's in the marketplace. Great place to get a patent, because you're not going to be able to protect that idea from a big company just taking your idea who's already in the marketplace and selling it to potential consumers. So you're going to get gobbled up quickly, right? Yeah. But if your idea is really what's behind the scenes and cannot easily be reverse engineered, trade secrets is another way to protect that, much less expensive. Some of the recipes in this world which are not protectable via IP other than through trade secrets really, are fantastic examples of where people, Kentucky Fried Chicken have their recipe for
7 herbs and spices, I think
700 or seven. Yeah, I copied your language there. For over 100 years, they've owned that, and so trade secrets is a very valuable way that's often overlooked, I feel like, because patents sort of have that, well, they used to have a ribbon, metal with them, and you have a patent, but it's only for a term of years, and you have to maintain it, and you have to undergo that entire expense, versus the efforts to maintain your information as trade secrets can be really valuable. So I often will counsel clients as to whether to go the trade secrets route, or if their product can be easily reverse engineered. Obviously, the only way to protect that is through patent work, and obtaining that patent protection. So the second question you answered was regarding process, and that can take multiple forms. So you mentioned that you have a provisional patent, and a provisional patent application can be less dramatic in the drafting. It doesn't have to have, it has to have detail, but doesn't have to have, all the bells and whistles of a non-provisional patent application. And it allows you to say you're patent pending, which can be very valuable in the marketplace. It can be very valuable to potential investors, et cetera. So hopefully there's sufficient disclosure there that's going to actually be meaningful, but no rights arise out of that. You don't actually have any patent rights. Your only right is to claim priority to it. And it does go abandoned in a year. So thereafter, your rights to use even patent pending end. During that year, and this is really helpful when people are in their development stage, they haven't finished all of, how this product is going to go.
Is it maybe like a prototype or something?
If they're just in the early stages of that, because ultimately the idea may evolve into something different, right? And you may have different pieces that you replace that you thought were really cool, but then you find even cooler pieces to it. And you can file a non-provisional patent application and make those changes at that stage.
That's amazing.
Great
stuff. So we're going to jump back into that, but first we're going to take a quick break and recognize our sponsors. This is Positively West Virginia. Stay connected with an unbeatable deal from Breezeline. Voted best in Mountaineer Country for their reliable, high-speed fiber internet for a low cost, Breezeline is the best gig in town. Here at InnerAction Media, we rely on high-speed internet every single day to ensure we can deliver the best content possible for our clients and when we publish Positively West Virginia each week. That's why we use Breezeline. It's affordable, fast, and they're great people as well. Learn more about Breezeline's internet, TV, and mobile options at breezeline.com. And we're back. We're visiting today with Monika Jaensson with Jaensson Law. We're talking about intellectual property law, and Monika is an expert in working in the patent space and, trademarks and provisional patents and all that kind of stuff. Monika, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that are close. They hold their ideas close to the vest. I don't want anybody to steal my idea, right? How true is that?
It's very true.
Yeah.
It is, and it's debilitating, I think, as well, because you really, in order to get your idea out there into the marketplace, you have to get it into the marketplace, which is the public sphere, right? And so, unfortunately, a lot of people get caught in that confidentiality stage and are so fearful of their idea being taken that they don't ever get to the business phase.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think of, through the dawn of humanity, how many ideas have come and gone, right? And it's kind of mind-blowing that people can still come up with new ideas, right? In this world that we're in.
Yeah, sometimes they're really groundbreaking. Sometimes they're just an improvement that seems, frankly, quite obvious, but nobody's actually put it out there before.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. I think about, just my little case. We had a piece of software, or this was back in 2020. 2022, ChatGPT was just coming out, and we were able to take generative AI and create a process around our story process and create a piece of software, a SaaS application, and we got a provisional patent on it. That's because fantastic. It was so groundbreaking at the time. Now there's a million different products out there, So StoryMaker, we still sell products on it, but we thought, man, if we can get a patent on this, that'd be pretty cool. But it's a lot of hoops to jump through.
It certainly is. Yeah. And in the non-provisional stage is really the heavy lifting stage. And that's where you really have to make sure that you have a fully enabling disclosure. So somebody who is skilled in the arts, not somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, but somebody who's in your field could pick up the patent application and really run with it and be able to use your innovation. The whole concept behind patent protection is the government will give you a monopoly for a term of years. And in exchange, you disclose your idea to the United States, and that's the trade-off. So the disclosure has to be extremely thorough.
And it could be drawings or a formula or the actual prototype or whatever, basically.
Yeah, it's all done in writing. Yeah. They used to have to submit the actual prototypes to the Patent and Trademark Office. They have a fantastic museum. Oh wow! Yeah, but cool. But now we no longer require prototypes. So.
All right, this is an off question, but what's the most interesting idea you've seen and seen it through to become an actual product, if you're able to say?
Oh, I have. Well, interesting products versus those that have made it out there. I worked with a client for a long time on some algae technology that they could distill and create beta carotenes out of. So really, one of my favorite projects that was 20 years in the making, ironically. Ultimately, it had some great opportunities, and it was bought by a big foreign company. So that was
off.
It certainly did. And a really great inventor.
That's great. Yeah. Were they from here in West Virginia?
He was, because he was working for, I believe, Dow before he went off and started innovating. Cool. And then, I have another piece of technology that's been through litigation and a lot of disputes, and we've been able to get some really good protection around it. And it's a mobile fusion machine, so it will fuse a pipe. HDPE pipeline, and it'll weld it along the way, so the machine moves with the pipeline, and it's all in an enclosed piece. And I got that technology back in the 90s, when I was a baby lawyer, and he acquired it, and I've just been patenting improvements on that machine.
That's amazing.
Monitoring stuff. So
that's very cool. Yeah. So it seems like you can actually be on the entire journey with an inventor or an entrepreneur along the way. That's pretty cool. I think of patent protection and coming off patent. A company, long-standing company here in Morgantown for years and years was Mylan Labs, Mylan Pharmaceuticals, and they became at the time in Mylan's heyday the largest generic drug manufacturer in the planet, on the planet. Yep. And what they were doing is looking and seeking pharmaceutical, drugs that were coming off patent.
Right, exactly.
And they can come into the public domain. Is that the right terminology?
That is correct. That's a trade-off, right? Yeah. So you get that monopoly for a term of years. You got to teach the United States how to make it, and then other people are allowed to pick it up when it expires.
That's how they formed their company and became just a powerhouse in healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now it's no longer, the company's no longer around, and their plant, Viatris's plant here in Morgantown's gone. So it's kind of interesting that just when I think of patents, that's what I think about, that off-patent technology or transfer of intellectual property to the public, which is pretty interesting. Now, Monika, your practice is based in Charleston. Mm-hmm. Where do your customers live? Are they right here in West Virginia? Or
I have most of my clients probably are from West Virginia, with the exception of the intended parents and surrogacy. So most of those are from out of state. And then I do have some customers or clients who have no ties to West Virginia, but I've just picked them up over the years through word of mouth or referrals. So it's really been heavy in West Virginia because there aren't a lot of intellectual property attorneys here.
Yeah.
So it's rather easy to pick up the work and really help clients.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. How do you get the word out there? In other words, whether it's the business law, the IP stuff, or the family related law, what's the best way to get that business in your mind?
In my mind, well, practice for 30 years with big law firms, and you
make a name for yourself.
Yeah, make a name for yourself. Well, on the shoulders of giants, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I'm just a little person on top of that. But yeah, I think, not having extensive people in my practice area, probably more attorneys are aware of my specialty than, it would be more difficult to bring in general business work, for example. Yeah. But the IP is a great way to get people in the door, and then I just want to help. So I want to help on their contracts.
I love it. I love it. This is Positively West Virginia. We'll be right back.
Your prescriptions are designed to keep you healthy, active, full of life. At Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, we're making vital medicine more affordable. Because when your prescriptions don't cost an arm and a leg, you can use those limbs for something more meaningful. Because life. Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, West Virginia.
And we're back. We're visiting today with Monika Jaensson with Jaensson Law out of Charleston. Monika, one of the things I talk about with entrepreneurs, small business owners, even mid-sized companies, is the idea of, falling in love with a problem. And can you talk maybe a little bit about that? Because I'm a believer that if you fall in love with the problem, the solution becomes the business. Yeah. And that is, in other words, if you fall in love with your solution, people, you may be solving something that doesn't even exist.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. That if you fall in love with a problem, then the innovation will come around it. And sometimes that innovation looks, as I mentioned earlier, really obvious to, like, why didn't we think of that? But no one has thought of it. And so I think a lot of innovation does come from identifying a problem. And then I would also say that clients sometimes will say, well, I got the patent now. Now the world's going to come to me. And of course, the world doesn't come to you. You really have to go out there to the world. But in addition to that, how do they stay ahead? Yeah. Because people start working around the patent rights potentially, or coming up with another way of solving the same problem. Yeah. And I say, always listen to your customer, because your customer will tell you what tomorrow's innovation is. Whatever frustration they are having with, the piece of equipment or whatever you're selling, that is where your innovation can lie next.
That is so good. Yeah, and that's 100% true. I've seen it just in my little business here in Morgantown, and I see it all the time with my clients, and the ones, I always say this, put it this way. Anybody can start a business today. We can come up with a business. We can create something. But building a business over time, that's very hard. Yeah. It's really, really hard, actually. And the idea is, if you think that you are not going to be able to change, or you're just going to do it your way for the next 20 years, you won't last. No. You've got to adapt, especially in this world that we're in. Here it is, 2025, and I think about like artificial intelligence. We talked about that a minute ago. We talk about technology and just the advancements and the way the culture is and our workforce and all these different things. There's so many variables, and it's just unbelievable, really.
But there's so many opportunities with that too, and you're absolutely right. If you're stuck in your business plan or where you intended, what market you intended to go, you miss all of these other opportunities as well. So I think you need to be nimble. You need to be open to new ideas. You need to see new opportunities, walk in the door and grab them. And
it's funny because like just talking about that falling in love with the problem, there's problems we all see every day that bother us, and that's potential business opportunity. I think of Shark Tank, and I don't watch a lot of TV, but every once in a while I'll watch YouTube and watch past episodes of Shark Tank, and it's really cool. Like, why couldn't I have thought of the Scrub Daddy?
I know.
It's such an easy thing. And now they've got the whole product line extension, but it's $100 million business or whatever, right? And so I think the idea of, and that's one of my encouragements with this show, is that if you're thinking of an idea, thinking of starting a business, go do it. It just takes a step. Sometimes you have to take a giant leap of faith. Sometimes you can wander into it through baby steps. And I love the idea of creating a product that has an opportunity for a patent. So thank you for sharing all that with us. In terms of growing your business here in West Virginia, do you have any challenges that you face right now, or are things going pretty well for you?
Things are going really well for me. Again, I had the advantage of 30 years with large law firms and their names that came with them. But I feel like the entrepreneur spirit here in West Virginia and the culture right now and the government support and nonprofit support around all of that is really driving a lot more entrepreneurs and getting into it. And you see even colleges and universities now have an entrepreneurship major, which was, you and I wouldn't have seen that when we were in school. So I really think that the culture here right now is hot and heavy on starting new businesses, on supporting new businesses, especially with a lot of wraparound services, technical assistance funds, grants. There's lots of opportunities to grow your business here.
And we talk about that quite a bit, with everything from the SBDC to Small Business Administration to local Chamber of Commerce, or the partnerships that exist in all these communities. There's so many people out there that want to come around and help businesses succeed. You don't have to do it alone. And that's obviously one of the, you're an entrepreneur, it can be lonely, right? It can be lonely. And who do I have to talk to? But doing that and having having an excellent law team, somebody like yourself who can help with intellectual property, it's essential. So I appreciate what you're doing to support the business community as well. I think that's super cool. When I think about business, I always like to ask, like, the vision. Like, what do you see long term? Do you see yourself applying for a patent someday?
No, that's not my skill set. And I'll tell you, also not my skill set is coming up with trademarks for customers. I always want to be good at that, but I'm horrible at it. So I'm much better behind the scenes, drafting the patent applications, writing about technology, figuring out ways to work around rejections and stuff like that.
Trademarks. How does that differ from a patent?
Yep. So a patent will protect innovation or an idea, whereas a trademark protects a mark that is used by somebody. So positively, West Virginia is a trademark, and it can name a product. It can even be like the layout of an Apple store, or a color. Can be a trademark, some way of identifying your product or service as compared to other people. And so all of those can be registered at the
Is that important for a small business? Like if you're doing business, let's say in your hometown or maybe your little region of West Virginia, a couple counties, is that important?
It's always, in hindsight, you will know.
Darn it. Why didn't I?
I counsel small businesses often as to how they, if they've limited funds, which every small business seems to have, how they allocate that and where they might, save some money. And one place you can save some money is by not filing a federal trademark registration. You actually start getting trademark rights just by using a mark in commerce. And so those we call them common law rights, but they're enforceable. And so if registering it seems like a nice thing to do, but it's not an imperative. And if you're putting dollars to registering a trademark and taking that away from marketing and sales, you're on the wrong side of the table, right? You really need to pump marketing and sales, product development. Those types of things are imperative. Now, from a trademark, you can file anytime. A patent, you only have a year after your first public use sale or disclosure in which to file an application. So you really do have to consider that expense earlier in the business. You can't delay that. And if you want protection outside the United States, in countries or in regions like Europe, you actually have to file the application before any public use sale or disclosure with very limited exceptions. So you have to be thinking about the timing of it on the patent side. But on the trademark side, I always feel like, well, it's a nice thing to have. It's a nice thing to have as IP on your balance sheet. It's something you're clearly going to be working to promote and get goodwill around. But the registration, you do have some rights without the registration, and the registration can be filed later.
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point because when you talk about the balance sheet, because I'm always talking about business valuations, and it breaks my heart when I see a business that's been doing services or selling products for 20 years, and all of a sudden they just close and they shut down. And I'm like, you guys have so much knowledge and wisdom and intellectual property and goodwill. And why would you just like walk away from that? There's value there. And I think if you have a patent or a trademark, those things can actually add value to the valuation of the company.
Absolutely. I always call it the IP asset schedule, that you can build that up. And actually when I work with people, I mean, you can build it up with separate innovation, but you can also build it up, in a way that might look impressive to an investor or a buyer, where if you actually look at what's behind it, it may just be one innovation that's wrapped up in several patents. But that schedule is very valuable.
And I know it's a television show, but I go back to Shark Tank, and they always talk about that. They'll say, is your intellectual property protected? Because that's a value, and we're talking about valuation. We're asking for an investor to step in. And I've been to, the West Virginia Ignite, West Virginia now it's called Ignite WV, the state business plan competition. I've served as a coach, and I talk to college kids and say, you got to build the value here. If you don't have sales, what else do you have? Right. And so I think that could be a part of it for sure. Yeah,
it definitely you need to consider all of that. It's just the timing of when you do things.
That's right. Well, so this might be a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it. So if I just, if I have a logo or a piece of an image, a word mark, and I put the TM, is that legal or is that?
Yes, that is. You cannot put the R with a circle around it unless you have a federal registration.
That's a registered trademark.
But there are many companies who have registrations on their trademarks that continue to use the TM. So that's not an automatic, it's not registered moment. And of course, it is claiming your rights. It's the way to say, I'm claiming rights to this mark. I think that you would continue to have those rights, regardless of whether you use the TM or the R actually does have some statutory rights that goes along with it. But regardless of whether you use the TM, but it also reminds people, and I find this particularly with copyright notices, it reminds people of the law. People are very quick to right click, which is very dangerous to do, and copy something or copy and paste, people's stuff. And I think when you have the copyright notice on your website and on your various, works, then people are reminded that it's your property, it's not theirs.
So let me ask you this, and this is a question that I get quite a bit, and I don't know the answer. That's why I'm asking it. But content, let's just say if you write an article or a page on your website and it's generated by artificial intelligence, is that copyrightable? Is it great?
Well, it is a litigated area right now, right? We're still trying to find out what the courts say about that and what the various copyright office, et cetera, are going to determine. I think that it has to do with whether you just say, hey, write an article on XYZ saying, 1, 2, 3, or whether it what you input and the revisions you make afterward really
is there a percentage that they're looking at?
Never. Nor is there a percentage in copyright infringement. I hear that often, but no.
Interesting stuff. I appreciate you sharing that because that's something I watch a lot, just because we use generative AI here, with our StoryMaker software. And yeah, it's very interesting to see how it's all going to play out. I
Yeah.
can't wait to see how it all.
Yeah, it makes a lot of
out.
people anxious, but I'm really excited about
Yeah,
it.
me
the
too.
Technology.
I am too. I think it is a very cool time to be in business, and a great time to be alive. Quite
Right.
frankly, there's a lot of cool stuff happening. So, you're a leader in the community. You serve. I think you still serve on the YMCA in Charleston, Kanawha Valley.
No.
You were doing that for a while.
I was.
What types of nonprofit things are you involved with there in Charleston?
Well, right now I'm on several committees with the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation. I'm on
they
their
do great work.
distributions. Oh, I know.
That's
I
awesome.
love being on their committees because you get to see so many nonprofits come through, and they all have great ideas. They're all making significant impact in their communities. It really gives you hope for the future.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Well, the point of that question is, you're a leader. You're a leader in the community. You're a leader of business. What do you think is one of the most important attributes of a successful business leader today?
Yeah. I think servant leadership is really important. When you well, I'll give you an example. I was president of the board of directors of the Kanawha County Public Library when they were determining whether to renovate.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
That's how we met. Yes.
Yeah. When they were determining to renovate. And then following that, obviously we did the renovations, and then I stepped away as president. But, I feel like you in that experience, I mean, first of all, that was a huge project, and libraries are so important. So the purpose of my efforts there was kind of daunting. But to the same extent, I think that you need to have all the right people in the room. And when you don't listen to the people in the room, or you don't have them present, then you aren't able to make wise decisions. And frankly, you're going to make bad decisions. And so, I think that when you're serving a purpose, when everyone's serving it together, the leader isn't necessarily the boss. The leader is the person who's corralling everyone and making sure everyone's voice is heard, and kind of parsing through that information, and ultimately, potentially making a decision. But a lot of the decisions become evident just through the discussion.
Yes.
And there's no reason why, one person should sit in a room and make all those decisions, or a few like-minded people.
Yeah.
I've seen leaders who will only surround themselves with people who agree with them, and I think that that's a big mistake. So I really enjoyed that experience with the library.
I love it.
Yeah,
And
we had all the right people.
Encourage folks to get out there and serve. Join. Most of the boards of directors I know are seeking quality people, and if that's an easy way to kind of get in amongst other leaders and understand how things flow.
Yep.
And it's okay to be a follower in that instance too, right? You don't have
just
to lead.
Plug in where your
right.
assets can help the organization and the purpose, and don't be wasteful of that. I think that it's great. I will say that I've always had a passion for community service. It's just something I was, I think, born with, and always drove my parents crazy. But I've always tried to find a way to plug in. And in West Virginia, it is so easy, not only just to plug in, but to actually, quickly get into leadership within organizations. Yeah. I found that to be,
I love it.
Such a welcoming state.
I think it's awesome. That's great.
And people want change. Yeah. They want better,
For sure. So. For sure. As it pertains to entrepreneurs, small business owners, what's one piece of advice you would think, or maybe give to somebody thinking about starting a business today?
I think I would advise them to plan, but not over plan. We talked about a lot of resources that are free in the state where you can get business plan assistance, get the right people in the room, make sure that, you have somebody who has the personality to sell it, your product. Maybe it's you, but you're probably not going to have all of the talent that you need to make a go of it. Get somebody with marketing on board. Legal and accounting and insurance are important.
I love it. That's great advice.
But I think what I've seen is people overplan. So they, start off this, business of 50 employees without a single sale, or that's a stretch, but you can see where you overplan, overcommit. I think that in sort of what I've found in my own business as well is that you have to be willing to work harder before you hire people, before people are relying on you for a paycheck. And then when those opportunities come up, then you can safely grow because you have the sales coming in the door.
Yeah. And sometimes that takes a while, right? I mean, it could, depending on what business you're in, it could take months or even years, you know, and to where you get to that point where you're starting to get the flywheel going and you're like, okay, I think this is going to work.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm doing this. But yeah, that's great wisdom, and I appreciate all that. You know, I think the services you provide for businesses here in West Virginia, entrepreneurs, inventors, I think that's amazing. We've covered a lot, Monika, in this interview. Is there anything else you think our listeners should know about your story or that of your law firm?
No.
Yeah, this is great. You know, I just want to say, you know, Monika, it's been great having you on the podcast. Thank you for being here. How can our listeners learn more about you, maybe even get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So my website, where you can click a link to contact me, is jaenssonlaw.com. So JAENSSON, unusual spelling, law, LAW.com. And then my email is Monika, MONIKA at jaenssonlaw.com. And and maybe you can put my number in your notes or something.
Yeah. We can do that. We'll put that in the show notes.
Not.
We'll make sure Jimmy will tag you on all the social media posts, and folks can just plug into you, Monika, and get to know you. And if they need your services, especially in the IP law, I think that's our audience will resonate a lot with that in business law. So thank you. I think what you're doing, Monika, is awesome for West Virginia businesses and your community service. And I just want to encourage you to keep up the great work.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. This has been fun. Folks, that's it for another episode of Positively West Virginia. If you or someone you know would be a great guest on our podcast, drop us a line on our website at positivelywv.com. We appreciate your encouragement, your comments, and sharing these stories, just like Monika Jaensson's and her firm, Jaensson Law, on your social media channels, and get the word out about her business as well. That's super important for us. On behalf of our entire Positively West Virginia team, including our producer today, Mr. Jimmy Murray behind the controls. I see you over there, Jimmy. I'm your host, Jim Matuga. Stay positive, West Virginia.
We'd like to thank our partners, Highmark West Virginia, Freedom Key of Morgantown, InnerAction Media, Storymaker, and our studio sponsor, Breezeline, for helping to share these positive stories. If you'd like to become a sponsor of the Positively West Virginia podcast, visit positivelywv.com/sponsor.